Hey guys, Wolf here. Today we're going to be talking about what went wrong with Titanfall. Now, this does not mean that Titanfall is a bad game or that I know everything it is to make a good Titanfall game or any good game for that matter, but it's just my opinions on what I felt like were Titanfall's shortcomings or just things they could have changed in different directions they could have went with. If you remember the last video, I talked a little bit about how EA now can publish for the PS4 and possibly produce through Steam will be a big help for the game, whereas the current Titanfall we have is only on Xbox One, Xbox 360, and Origins, which really limits its player base. So getting it on more consoles and more systems and operating devices and such will help bring in more players, which will help get more games going. We're going to start off with this video talking about the campaign and the story mode, which is a little lackluster because of the way it's handled. Instead of coming with a dedicated single player campaign like you would find in a Call of Duty or Battlefield, Titanfall changes things up a little bit and decides to basically take multiplayer matches and put a little bit of storyline into those matches that you play in a sequential order to get the story. The only problem with this is that you only get a little bit of an intro and a little bit of an outro at the beginning of each mission, and then outside of that you get little quips here and there inside the missions from individual characters and NPCs. But the issue with this is you cannot pay attention because of the action that is going on. You also have the issue of every time you begin with one of these intros or end with an outro, they're pretty much the same as all the others. Winning and losing really doesn't change these. They're basically doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it gets a little repetitive after a while. One thing that they could do that would fix this issue is just drop the whole multiplayer campaign aspect altogether and just focus on a dedicated single player campaign. This would help bring in those guys who just want to play the single player aspect, who do not have the internet, and it will help create more fans of Titanfall, which is always good. I know what you're thinking, there might not be a lot of guys out there for a single player, but they really are. I work in a GameStop, I find a lot of people really were disappointed in the fact that Titanfall did not have a dedicated single player. And you never know, those guys who are playing the single player today might jump on the multiplayer tomorrow, therefore adding more and more players to the games. The game modes, like I said, are lacking in players, so the more players we could get would be much better. So I definitely think this is something that they should look into. However, there are some drawbacks to this. If they decided to go with a dedicated single player, that means they have to put resources, time, money, a lot of things into making a good single player experience. This will take away from the multiplayer, and with the small dev like Respawn, it could stretch them too thin. It might not work out or be beneficial for them to try and do a full single player campaign mode like you would find in a Call of Duty or Battlefield. It might be better if they figure out a way to fix the multiplayer campaign mode and keep the story in that way, or find a new way altogether to bring in the story mode. One thing I think they could do is try and take that campaign multiplayer and tweak it a little bit and try and redo the system to where it works more like a rush system that you would find in Battlefield. What if a match was played, it started with an intro, you watched the intro, you played an objective to a certain point for 3 to 5 minutes or so. Once that objective has been reached or failed, you get a little bit more story, then you get a whole new objective and you have to move forward. Like Rush, if anyone has ever played Battlefield and Rush, basically it comes down to this. You got 2 MCOMs that you have to blow up if you're the attacking team. If you're the defending team, you got to defend them and bleed your opponent's tickets. As the attackers, if you destroy both MCOMs, you got to move on to the next pair of incoms, and as the defenders, you have to fall back to that base. you get about 4 or 5 times as the attackers of taking out MCOMs before you win the match. We could use a similar system here with Respawn's Titanfall. Now we would have to be careful of situations that would pop up. For example, in the current Titanfall, every intro is about the same, every outro is about the same. If that were to happen with the new rush system that I would like to put into the game, it would get a little redundant and at the end of the day be kind of pointless. You would have to change it up to where if you the way you begin the first mission is completely separate to the way you begin the third mission. Also, the objective should be different as well. You could even, to vary it up a little bit, in between each objective, have different game modes that must be played. For example, you start out with an intro, you get your first objective for an attrition match. After that one has been won or lost, you then get an objective for a domination match, or a hardpoint match in this case. After that one has been won or lost, your final objective is a sabotage match. Now, to give you guys an even better example of the system I'm talking about here, this is one I've thought of about how a match could go down. We would start out with the militia. All 6 players would start in a bar meeting a contact, while the IMC starts out in the outside of the city, and their point is to get into the city to kill the contact. The IMC would actually get a little bonus objective at the very beginning to take out a few guards. Those players would do that. If they do, they get a little bit of extra points. We go back to the militia inside of the bar, and it turns out that a few of the people in the bar are IMC agents, and then the militia players get a chance to take out a few agents while their contact leaves. They get a few points for that. The first mission will be played like a blitz mode. Basically, here's the idea. The contact has to get out, and in order for that to happen, you have to distract the IMC. The IMC has to assassinate the contact. The way it would work is very simple. There is a objective area on the map. The IMC players need to reach the area for a set number of times, whereas the militia have to defend that area and not let them reach. If the IMC are successful, they are getting closer to assassinating the contact. And the next mission could be an actual assassination attempt. For example, if the contact is on a jet trying to leave, then the IMC would have to plant a bomb on the jet to make sure it blows up and kills him. And if the militia win the original Blitz game, then they could also get a sabotage match, but in a different direction. Maybe they have to shut down some anti-air guns that the IMC have somewhere based off in the city. That way their contact can leave. Now the issue with this is it does get a little crazy trying to make sure you can cover all these bases, especially with the mission changing if one group wins or one group loses. That could get a little troublesome for Respawn. It could be more work than it's worth. Maybe at the end of the day, the system they had in place wasn't so bad. It just needs a little bit of, like I said, tweaking. Or maybe it's just there for lore bits, but the real focus of the game is the multiplayer, which, while not perfect, is very fun, but does have some issues that could be changed or looked at, which I think would bring in more players, because right now, like I said, if you look at the Titanfall servers, there are not that many players, and really we need to figure out why there aren't so many players and what we can do to bring in more players. Now, I've covered the 2 big issues so far, or we need the game on more systems, and we need to take a look at the campaign and see about ways to fix it up. My next video, we are going to cover the multiplayer. It's going to be a long video. There's a lot of things to cover on the multiplayer that could be different, could be changed, could be better, could be worse even. Like I said, I am not a developer. I am not God's gift to gaming. My word is not law. This is just my ideas and opinions. Feel free to disagree with them. If you do, let me know in the comment section. If you can, like the video, subscribe. And if you want to see anything else, guys, you just let me know. Wolf out. Thanks, guys.
Take out the IMC before they have a chance to escape.
Excellent work, pilot. You completed your rating goals. Very good.
I'm still detecting IMC pilots in the area. Cut them off before they get to the evac point. The enemy dropship is here. Take it out.